Okay, we're back to recording.
Okay, so part two of Degenerate Discussions, Georgia Guidestones rant, or, well, I guess just, well, you know what? We'll figure out what to call it later.
The
So,
mystery boner.
the mystery boner, yeah. So, any questions so far?
I mean, I got a question, but they're not gonna get any answers.
Well, none of this is probably going to give me answers, but I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities, or, give an explanation.
How fucking stupid were these people?
No, that's a good question.
That's my question.
Stupid enough. There's the answer.
I have to ask a question in return. Which people? The ones who commissioned it, the ones who built it, or the ones who kept talking about it?
Yes.
Yeah, anyone. I mean, I get what they were trying to do, but if you want to change the world or inspire people, you would be a better job of actually reaching out to people and finding like groups and shelters and things like that, and then like essentially making a cult at that point. You would be better off taking people in who have nowhere else to go and making a little cult for them to believe and follow your ways at that point. Because I mean, putting up a damn American Stonehenge is not gonna make people stop fucking with the environment or do what you want them to do.
No, I agree.
Hell, the Catholic Church can't even get people where, the Catholic Church can't even control people with their sex, so what the hell make you think you're gonna have a better chance at stopping the population at what, 500 million?
Yeah.
Heck, there's several cities in the United States that got a population of that size.
That's true. Again, hence the controversy. People a little ticked off by the supposed mass genocide of over 90% of the population. It tends to irritate people for some reason. I can't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would have an issue with that.
I mean, I figured they would have more of an issue when China actually tried to implement this shit with their whole
child policy.
Yeah, new child policy. I figured people would get more offended by that shit than anything.
No, it was 2. It was you can only have 2 children. Any more than that,
and
I like how it was also any more than that, the newer ones must die. Not
and
the
wasn't
older
it
ones.
that it had that they preferred for you to have boys rather than girls?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know why, but the volume keeps getting really loud on me. You guys can't hear anything because I'm not sharing the volume, but I hear it and it's gonna be caught in the recording.
Gotcha, okay.
So yeah, if you see me ever fiddling with that, that's why I'm fiddling with it.
No, that's fine. So no questions so far? We're good?
No, we're good.
Okay, so now here comes the real fun part, is people trying to figure out who built, who commissioned the building of these Georgia Guidestones. Now, of course, they went to the bank manager, White C. Martin, but he's not saying anything. And honestly, I don't think he's ever going to say anything because, well, he's been a bank manager most of his life, and now he's getting a whole bunch of attention and notoriety just because he was the bank manager of this. Do you honestly think he's ever going to see anything? Because I think he's enjoying the attention and people asking him way too much.
I figure you would be getting annoyed by all the attention.
Yeah, that or he's like one of them.
Well, I mean, he's in his 80s and he was a bank manager with probably not the most exciting life living in the middle of freaking Georgia. So, I mean, from what I can tell, he's always willing to talk to people about it. So I'm thinking he actually enjoys the attention. And if he enjoys the attention, then there's no way in hell he's ever going to tell everybody and, stop the attention and the mystery.
Yeah.
He claims he's doing it out of his professional work, but do we really believe that?
No.
No? Zed, what about you?
No.
Okay, good. So, now here comes the fun part. So
very rarely will you find someone who can actually not, be bought at the very least out of that stuff.
Right? Especially for something
especially given his occupation.
Yeah. He's a freaking banker. Literally he's around money all day. No.
Yeah, no.
So, now here comes the fun part about this, is the scenarios and trying to figure out who built Guidestones. Now, as I personally see it, there are 3 basic scenarios. One, R.C. Christian was a mildly wealthy individual who personally conceived of and paid for the Georgia Guidestones under the guise of being part of an organization. Later, he chose to abandon the ruse and just publish a book claiming sole responsibility for the monument's creation. That's the first option. Second option is Robert C. Christian was completely telling the truth in every way, and the book, and when he published a book under pseudonym, it was in order to further hide the identity of the group that he was a part of, or he had a falling out with the group and decided just to take credit because he knew the group would never actually come forward. The final scenario is that Roger C. Christian was a fantasy that never existed at all, and he was made up by Alberton County to conceal the true purpose of the Georgia Guidestones, which was just to bring in tourists and put the town on the map, which it has done. Thoughts so far?
I mean, honestly, that last one may be the most likely.
Aren't there like records? Because such a construction job I would assume there would be some type of trail of construction papers or
no, all the construction papers were handled by Joe H. Fenley, the man that R.C. Christian originally went to. All the instructions were given to him by R.C. Christian, and all the money came from the bank, where R.C. Christian sent in written instructions and payments from various parts all over the country.
Well, I assume someone had to come in just to manage the construction of it, just because, I mean, even if you have the best written notes of all time.
They also had a model. There was a model, exact specifications, blueprints, everything given, and Joe H. Fenley was actually one who oversaw the entire thing.
So now the question...
plans were then looked at by the engineers and astrological professors that I mentioned earlier.
Well, now the question boiled down to, what the heck were these people who funded this shit so afraid of that they didn't want to have any part of their name attached to this shit?
Well, to be fair, their way of thinking is pretty much on the basis of eugenics. Which, do you guys know what eugenics is?
Yeah, but I mean, god dang, there's a lot of people who talk about that shit nowadays and they're not that fucking paranoid.
True, but most people, most people think eugenics, they think back to Star Trek and the eugenics wars.
That's also true.
Yeah. But, eugenics, basically, it's the practice that they aim to improve the human race by controlling breeding and only allowing people to populate who are genetically acceptable and will give off to a higher form of life, which is a lot of bullcrap. But, whatever.
I mean, at that point, you might well try the whole test tube baby thing and try to just weed out the...
replaced it.
Yeah.
Which I find a little better. At least
That's
they're not...
more practical, at least.
It's more practical, and they're not at least, suggesting mass genocide all the time. Usually. And they're not as big on sterilization. Anyway, so for the first... So the big thing that most people think is that this was just constructed by an individual person. They think that one person was responsible for it, put up the money, and everything else was a front. Now, there are three primary suspects that most people think are responsible for the Georgia Guidestones. The first one is John H. Fenley himself, the man who claimed to have first been approached by R.C. Christian. He was friends with White C. Martin at the bank, and he oversaw the entire project. He was also a Freemason. And he was brought a lot of notoriety and fame from this, so much so that the media attention given to him this allowed him to actually run and win his mayoral campaign. So he became mayor because of this. So a lot of people think that he could have commissioned it under the ruse that it was just, some creepy organization. Then from the fame of it, allowed him to become mayor. So they think this is all carefully laid out plan, which is not completely as far-fetched as it seems, because while this monument looks like it took a long time, believe it or not, it only actually took 9 months to construct. I mean, that's pretty impressive for that slab of, as you guys call it, a bunch of rocks.
Yeah.
However, there are problems. Most, you see, while most of the participants who worked on the Georgia Guidestones were Masons, that's actually to be expected from the county because most of the people there are Masons. Almost everyone there is Masons. Lots of people are Masons, and Masons working in a granite company that just kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, that's almost like being surprised that an ice cream truck comes from an ice cream factory. It's just like they go hand in hand.
Wait, that's where they come from?
No, I'm just making a point.
I know.
You can see where to go for that.
I know.
No, not at all. Also, people are pointing out that Joe didn't possess the skill set to have come up with it. Now, while I mentioned before that like 80 different people worked on the stones, engineers, astrological people, everything, to originally construct this thing, they did still need a basic understanding of what it would need to look like and how it would need to function. So there had to at least have been a little bit of knowledge of both astronomy and, just solstices and a little bit of engineering to know how to do this. Probably not a lot, but it required at least a basic knowledge. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the final thing was Joe's character. People mostly described him as very boastful, vain, and extremely bad at keeping secrets. And also, on a side note, Martin was actually asked if Christian was Joe, and White Martin, who knows Christian's real name according to him, said that it was not Joe Fenley. So that's the first one. Thoughts?
I think it could just be the whole it sounds like, the more I hear it, the more it sounds like just they did this to get publicity for the town and for various people within the town.
No, I mean, people do think that, but most think that that Joe wasn't smart enough to do this, and then why the elaborate gang and why publish a little book? Because the booklet, Common Sense Renewed, was actually sent to a lot of people, including every member of the Congress, with a picture of the completed Guidestones on the front. And basically, the booklet is all about eugenics.
To sell it. To sell the actual story that this is a secret organization doing this to put this city on the block.
Fair, though not great for a county if anyone ever discovered the truth. See, my problem is the more people you have in on something, the harder it is to keep a secret. I mean, if the whole county were in on it, especially the politicians, I mean, wouldn't you have expected someone to just F up by now?
Well, I think only a few people was in on the actual plot that it's all a hoax, and the county was told that this was going on. They were made to believe that this is real, but only a few people actually know, no, this shit isn't real, this shit just made up.
I mean, I can see that, but then why the fake name? Because one thing I found out was that Alberton County was actually very big on eugenics, even attempting to pass a law at one time making sterilization of certain undesirable people completely legal.
Because while that could fly in that actual town, this was built during 1980. During the time where a good chunk of, I'm not gonna say a good chunk, but where a good fair amount of people in other parts of the United States were realizing that this wasn't really a good idea, and this wasn't really, and it make you look like an asshole when you propose it.
Sure.
So this was probably to protect it in case this all fell flat on its face. And this had backslash.
True. And I got to it, but my final problem is just the money. Is seeing a government spending that much money on it.
But I thought it was a lot of private people as well.
Well, that's just it. How many private people do you know who are mildly wealthy, willing to spend money? See, that's my problem with the whole private person doing this is the Scrooge McDuck theory. You know, how do rich people stay rich? They don't spend money on anything.
I never said they spent their own money. They could easily just took this money from the company or some shit like that.
Yeah, but also remember, Elberton's a small place, and, you know, if it was Joe Fenley and he supposedly took this money from his own company, that's a decent chunk of change for, you know, a granite building company. I mean, someone would have noticed, and the IRS after your asses. I mean, say what you want about the IRS, but if they see any strange money transactions, they go after your ass so goddamn quick. Bloody IRS. So that's the only part that I have a little problem with the single individual. I do admit it's completely possible, but just, you know, an individual spending that much money has always been a bit hard for me to swallow. Just because I don't know a lot of individuals who'd be really willing to do that, though I do know a lot of groups who would be willing to, like, fundraise to make that much money, you know, get donations from them and things, and then pay it off like that. That I see is a little more feasible, just money-wise. But I'm not sure how feasible it is people-wise. Again, my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Again, feel free to contradict me. Like, I'm just blowing smoke out of my ass over here.
No, this sound like the what you call it, the money pit on Oak, is it Oak Island, I believe?
Yes.
This sound like a money pit on Oak Island to me.
I mean, it could be.
This sound literally like just a Oak Island money pit where everyone thinks it's something big and mysterious and it's gonna be profitable, but really it's just a hole in the ground that you're just gonna keep dumping money in.
Probably.
And I think this is kind of the same way where this. Now, where the money came from for them to do all of this crap? It's tough because the fact that the bank manager is always willing to talk about it, you know, instantly make me think that he's in on it in some degree.
Yeah, no, I question that too because apparently one person who talked to him, well, he said that he believes the bank manager is a nice guy and completely, you know, clear of actually being part of this. He mentions also that the bank manager was interested in his genealogy, which, you know, who's interested in your genealogy?
You know, that's more red flags.
Right? That was a big red flag to me. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of odd. You know, I've talked to a lot of elderly gentlemen, and they've never asked me about my genealogy.
Only the ones that got some issues.
Yeah. Okay, so that's suspect one. The second suspect is Dr. Francis Merchant. Now, the reasons he's a suspect is, you know, he's an author, he's a college professor, and he was a big follower of Alice A. Bailey. So he was an Alice A. Bailey disciple, and Alice A. Bailey is basically a woman who was also claimed to be a psychic and able to channel spirits to tell her about the future and other bullshit. She was big into eugenics and the destiny of mankind, and was fairly resentful of Jews existing.
Oh.
Yeah, so, you know, delightful woman there.
Yeah.
She even, with her husband, founded a paper called the Lucifer News Bulletin.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even kidding about that. As it turns out, they eventually changed the name because for
I wonder why.
I can't imagine why.
No.
To the Lewis script instead. Real changer there, which actually is still in operation today. But yeah. So this guy is also a 32nd. He's actually a 32nd degree Freemason. He's an Elberton resident, and he actually has a similar writing style to R.C. Christian. You know, his manner of writings is similar, and he's got UN connections. Because remember, the translations were actually done by UN translators. So the argument is, of course, that he's actually intelligent enough to have come up with this plan, which is understandable. However, the main thing against him that people don't think that he is that he and his wife didn't actually move to the area until 1980, a couple of years after the monument was built. So that's where people have a little bit of problems with him. Thoughts?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's where it gets a bit more complicated. But, Zed, any thoughts on suspect number 2, Dr. Francis Merchant? Okay, that leads us to suspect number 3, and you guys are going to love this. Actually, if we're anywhere near a stopping point, this would be a good time.
Okay, let me do that then. I'll stop the recording now. And it should be saying stopped.